according to this report, the Sri Lankan military shelled civilian areas, the Tamils used civilians as human shields, and UN officials on the ground should have done more to stop it.
Yes, that's right. This is really a devastating and very strong report. It really speaks volumes about the kind of war that this was, because unlike Libya, where people are twittering and photographing, and you have humanitarian workers and reporters on the ground reporting the war day by day, that wasn't the case in Sri Lanka. The government pretty much had a free hand in its final assault on the Tamil Tigers. And that accounts for the tens of thousands of alleged deaths that this report has highlighted.
So it would seem that if you read this report through, it talks about systematic shelling of hospitals, of a no-fire zone, humanitarian aid being withheld by the Sri Lankan government, that most of the crimes here have been committed by the government forces.
Yes, well, I mean, it's figuring out the precise line of right and wrong is difficult, but certainly the UN panel of experts have highlighted the fact that the majority of these alleged tens of thousands of dead died due to government shelling. That's not to let the Tamil Tigers off the hook, because they were certainly responsible for holding more than 300,000 people hostage, and in fact executing even women and children who tried to escape from the siege zone.
But given the report's finding when it comes to the government which has rejected this report, that means that this investigation, which human rights activists want to proceed, simply can't go any further. Explain how that works.
Well, no, I think it's an open question as to what will happen next. I think that people will find it very difficult to ignore this report. This report puts all the current revolutions in the Middle East, Libya, Egypt, Syria, Yemen, it makes them look like a tea party in comparison with what happened at the end of the war in Sri Lanka. It really is one of the most significant war crimes of the last 30 years. And really what the panel report is calling for is a full investigation. That needs to be the next step, that there is a properly invested international judicial investigation to establish the full facts.
Absolutely, but what I'm getting to is that Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General of the UN, doesn't seem eager, if you like, or keen to take this to, say, the UN Security Council. Sri Lanka is not a signatory to the International Criminal Court. It's not a member there, so it can't go to the ICC. So unless there is agreement by the Sri Lankan government to accept this report, it really ends here.
No, I don't think it can end here. I think that this report is breaks new ground in a sense. The UN didn't leave it at the end of the war. The Secretary General did impanel a panel of experts. They've come back with a recommendation. The recommendation is to have a full investigation. Certainly, the government of Sri Lanka is extremely unlikely to ever agree to an international investigation, but it's conceivable that the Security Council will agree to it. There's a reputational cost now, I think, to the great powers to simply ignore what is alleged to be one of the great crimes of the last 30 years in terms of international war crimes.
Sure, the Security Council, though, seems very divided on this issue, unlike Libya, for example. But just want to get your opinion, your take on what's actually going on in Sri Lanka right now. There seems to be open hostility towards the UN. The government seems to be organising rallies against the United Nations.
Well, this is predictable. There's a long history of intimidation and bullying and even the killing of dissenters. Not that those attacks have taken place so far on the UN, but it was predictable. I think the government of Sri Lanka was always going to react violently to these findings, and they will try and gather whatever support they can to forestall further action, further international action.